the world of AI, especially now, the models are improving every week. Tools are coming out every day because the coding tools have gotten so good, they're starting to create themselves. We've got agents everywhere. We've got agents on the phone. We've got things called Claude that says that it can do everything for you that's launching. We're going to see a lot of these things rapidly happening within the space of AI. And I want you to know, where do you fall in your AI maturity and how you can leverage it more. So that is the purpose of this conversation today. The AI maturity framework, let me go through this. We started again with ChatGPT, and we asked it a question, and it gave us an answer. And most people, when we were using 3.5, looked at it and used it as a search engine. So it was like, hey, how do I make my garden grow better? And it would give you an answer, and it might be okay, it might not be okay. At this early time, when we saw 3.5 come out, it wasn't really equipped with a lot of tooling, so when you asked it things like, how many R's are in the word strawberry, it would tell you 8. And then the next time it would tell you 2. And then the next time it would tell you 6. We had come a long way since then, but some people's maturity stopped here. The majority of the population's maturity stopped here. They're using tools as a question and answer engine. They're like a search engine. That's why I don't even say it's like a level in the maturity framework. It is a thing that most people do now. Then we move to this level where you're the instructor. The relationship that you have with AI is you're treating it like an assistant. You've given the assistant your coffee order. You've said, hey, I like a Starbucks latte that has 1 pump of sugar. I like it really hot and venti. And that assistant knows that the next time you ask for Starbucks, they're going to get you that particular order. And so what that means is I give them a set of instructions that they know about me so that they can customize the answers towards me and not be very generic. So that is level 1, which I'm assuming that everyone in the room is at least at level 1. Rob's laughing. But
is a half, right? Is there a half?
Is there a half? When we get to level 2, we are the designers. We as humans are acting as the designers, and we are treating the AI as the builder for us. So when we're treating them like a builder, tools like Lovable, like Replit, and what we're doing is we're saying, hey, I want this cool website, I want a surfing website that you want to build for me, can you go build it? And so I'm designing it, I'm thinking about it, and I'm putting in my specifications, and it is smart enough to build it in terms of a prototype. So that is what we have on level 2. What I think everybody wants to know about is what is level 3 and what is level 4? And is there going to be a level 5? But on level 3 right now, we are looking at the relationship that we have with the AI is that we are now the supervisor to do an autonomous task on their own. We have to be very precise in how we tell them what to do, but there's some part of us that needs to trust that AI is going to do the things that we ask them to do. And so that's the difference of the relationship that we have when we become at level 3, we're the supervisor and they are the agent. And then the last thing that I think a lot of people have talked about, but no one a lot of people don't understand or feel what this is, that our relationship now with the AI is not that they are an individual assistant, they're not a person, they're not like delegating a task to one person. I'm orchestrating an entire army, an organization of agents to do what I want them to do. And instead of saying, hey, build this one thing or do this one task, and they're doing it autonomously, now I'm saying, I'm stepping aside and saying, hey, I need this outcome to happen, and I have an entire organization to help me achieve that outcome. So I'm going to go through each of these steps and what they look like and what they feel like so that you're familiar with and can identify what level you are, your co-founder is, how you're thinking, and then hopefully how to level up in this progression. Okay, so one thing I want to say is the tools have gotten very, very good in AI. It is not just about using the new tool. It is about what you're going to invest into using that tool. So what does each level cost you? The first level, when you go from 0 to 1, you're giving up anonymity. You're investing in telling it who you are or information about what are the things that you like or your business likes. You're giving up that information to be able for it to help you. When you go from level 1 to 2, you're going to give up something that you're doing everything. You're not copying and pasting that thing into the code that you've asked for into your coding IDE. You're saying, hey, I want somebody else to build this for me, but you have to invest heavily in the clarity of the information you want. So when I say this, everybody probably knows what a prompt is. It is the things you put into the ChatGPT or Claude, and when you ask it a question, that prompt gives you back an answer. You have to be crystal clear on what is in that prompt. It's not build me a website. You need to tell them exactly what the website's for, what is the type font that you want, what are the color palettes that you want, what is the intent on the site, and as precise as you can be, it will be better at building it for you because it is not great at ambiguity. When you go from level 2 to level 3, you have to invest in the fact that you're willing to let go of things. When you step away from an agent overnight and trust it to do something, you don't want it to come back and everything's broken and you have to fix that code. So you have to build up your levels of trust to know that your coding agents or the agents that are working has done something that you approve of. And you're trusting. I have a voice agent called Howie. Howie.ai does all of my scheduling and bookings because I don't do that very well. I know what my limitations are. So Howie AI, I CC him and say, Howie, book an appointment on my calendar. I have to trust that they're not going to screw up that appointment, especially if really important appointment. So I have to give up myself actually doing or directing the job. I have to know that Howie can be very professional. And if you want to email Howie for me, that's great too. And then when we get from 3 to 4, we have to give up supervising. So we're not just saying, hey, we're going to supervise everybody in the room. We're investing in our ability to decompose systems, not individual things, but entire systems. What do I mean by systems? If I'm running an engineering organization, I need testers. The testers need to talk to developers. The developers need requirements. The requirements folks need product managers. And when all of those tools are ready, it goes to product marketing, right? I have to create a system on how they all have relationships in order for that organizational system to work. That's what level 4 is. And it sounds fantastical that we can even get there, but it is happening now in some areas, in some places. We're not far from many companies who are able to wield the tools and understand systems thinking from being able to do this. But it is a hard jump to go from 3 to 4. I'll show you why. Okay? So level 0, you ask, it answers. So let me give you a real world example. The grocery test. How can I save money on groceries? And I live on an avocado farm in Waimanalo. And food security is actually very important to me. And the prices of food and eggs, I was aghast when I went to Foodland, and it was $8 for a thing of butter, the 4 sticks of butter. $8 when it used to be $3. How can people afford $8 for a block of butter? How much is milk? And how are we supposed to be like, it's a Hawaii and things are expensive, I get it, but everyone here needs to be understanding, like, how can I save money on groceries? So if you put it into a large language model, they're going to give you a very generic answer. Create a shopping list. Do coupons, digital coupons on your thing. Don't shop at the store when you're hungry. Let us see if I open Gemini exactly what it says. So I asked the question, how can I reduce my grocery bill? And it says, before you shop in your pantry first, and meal plan, use your apps, not circulars. That's not a lot of great information there. But it did its job. It's the most generic solution that it could possibly get. And that's what you get when you put things on level 0 and when you're using ChatGPT. We're going to really quickly into level 1 because everyone's surpassed level 0. Now that we say that we're at level 1, we're instructing, there's assisting. So same question, different answer. How can I reduce my grocery bill? And instead, I live on a farm, my name is not Kaivi, it is Miki, but I created somebody called Kaivi. And they're a family of 3, they shop at Times, and we'll see how different Kaivi's result is. There's a shopping strategy, let's go to Costco. There's a Whole Foods strategy, which is close to her. There's a Times Market. But they also said, hey, look at your Waimanalo roots. There's a ton of people that you can trade and barter, and there is in Waimanalo. Go to your local farmers markets. So those are the things that I would get if I offered up information. You might want to ask, and by the way, I didn't do anything super special on that. I just gave it a little bit of information on Kaivi. And how does that look? In Google Gemini, it looks like it's called a gem. I don't know if anybody's used this. It's the same thing as a custom GPT or artifacts in Claude. I'm going to give a little bit more of me into this. And once I have that piece of me and information, I can load it with a ton of more information about me. It can give me better answers. So as founders in the room, what are the things that you could do using a custom GPT? And I use this in Claude Artifacts. My pitch deck's in there. I've got all of the information about my investment rounds and who are the investors I'm looking and targeting towards. I've got my marketing plan in there. I've got things in there so that when I have to write a little snippet for a bio or an email that I have to send out, I can use it as an assistant with information about me to better craft that email. Okay? So that's about level 0. Who has used gems, artifacts, or custom GPTs? Yeah. Super helpful because what we're doing is we're saying we said, I don't want to keep repeating myself and telling this thing who I am all the time because repetition is wasteful. Fun facts, we have 12% of the daily chat GPTs use involves custom GPTs. This is not 12% of users, this is 12% of its use. That's a really low number, and it's the usage, so the people that are actually using ChatGPT more are driving up that number. So in the world, people, like when you're looking at level 1, there's not a lot of people even at level 1 in the world. That's just an interesting fact. For ChatGPT specifically, there's a memory component that you can add. You can go in and customize and say, here's a little bit more about me. GPT models can be a bit sycophantic and say, you're so awesome, Miki, you're just amazing. And I had to tell it to dial it down a bit. I need reality, I need ground truth, and I need you to bring me into reality, not pump me up. So those are the things that are in my custom GPT, but a lot of people aren't using it. And so if you're not, I would go into those custom settings and basically tailor it towards you. Okay, level 2. So level 2 is a great level. And when Replits came out, the word vibe coding came out. And I have a love-hate relationship with the word vibe coding. In some cases, it has a bad rap because people on the engineering community think it's sloppy code and it's just a shortcut. But really, vibe coding is an ability to express yourself without needing an engineer next to you if you are not technical. It is, if you are an engineer, it is the ability to have a really good prototype that's fast and out there so you can test what you want. So when we go through this level 2, it builds me a grocery price comparison app. Let users pick 5 items, see things from Times, Foodland, Costco, Whole Foods, and highlight the cheapest option. So again, we had a lot of tools like Bolt, Lovable, Replit, and they have been able to say, I can just write 2 sentences in there, and I can get an entire application built. So that's pretty awesome, but I don't really roll with 2-sentence prompts because the more explicit you can be, the better off you are. So take that 2-second prompt, take a minute, put it into ChatGPT or Claude, have Claude write a better prompt for you, and that's what I did. So Claude wrote a really great prompt. This is the prompt that it created. Core features of a price comparison will give you a smart basket store info. Copied and pasted in there so that I could put it into this application called Lovable. Now, what did Lovable do? Lovable, after a few minutes, with just the prompt, wrote 2 sentences, improved the prompt, and pasted in here, was able to get me to what I'm calling Comma Ina Saver. And Comma Ina Saver looks at the price of eggs, milk, rice, spam, and bread.
Is that your next business, baby?
And then what it can do, what it's awesome, is like I can see, okay, do I get excited about this when I say, okay, I can shop at Don Quixote, and that's the best price for me to do. I've got an optimized total, and my shopping plan has Don Quixote, and if I bought it at one store, that's how much it's going to cost me. Pretty cool. The data in here is all fake data. The data in here is fake data. When they asked me to prototype it, they're like, okay, that data is really cool, but we're not going to be able to do that right off the bat. Can you with more prompts? Sure. This is the limitation of this level. Like, you can go pretty far with Lovable. One of the things, you get to test it, you get to feel and experience how you can interact with this application. But in order for it to be at a level where you can actually ship it as production level code, it takes a bit more than that. There's a technical cliff you have to go off. And that technical cliff means you got to make sure that you've sealed all the security gaps. You need to make sure that you don't have context degradation. You need to make sure that you actually have good sound data engineering principles. The hardest part was really going and getting and scraping all of the data from different grocery stores. And by the way, it's hard to do that because things like Amazon, Instacart, they all have blockers so that you can't scrape it. So the hardest part here was getting an API or trying to find some type of data source that can feed that information. So that was the blocker between going from level 2 to level 3. If I got more complex with my Lovable application there, or any kind of vibe-coded application. This happened to me before Claude Code came out. I was using Replit a lot. It took more time for me to go in and fix Replit's code and find out what the issues were than it would have been for me to actually code it myself. That was then. Now it's a lot better. But now we also have a lot better tools that we can use to actually go beyond that. Okay? So then, that brings us to level 3. So the mindset shift change was I was able to see it, now I'm able to ship it when I get to level 3, which means I'm supervising an AI acts. It's like a trusted employee that you give your outcomes to. Who has heard of the word agentic engineering? So agentic engineering means that you're actually going through the engineering process to decide how to deploy code. It means that you're going through this mindset of, I understand what I'm going to build. I'm going to plan what I'm going to build. I'm going to write some requirements. Then I'm going to have something executed for me, and I'm going to iterate until it gets better and better. So when we go into the world of agentic engineering, we're not doing it ourselves in terms of the execution. We're really involved with the planning part of this, creating product requirements documents, creating non-functional or even functional requirements, making sure every part of that is absolutely pristine. We've got definitions of done, we have great and testable user acceptance criteria in the agentic engineering. There's an engineering lifecycle there. Now we as engineers don't have to do all the coding and execution from that. Here's the example. I want to get real prices from stores to replace the mock data. The great thing about Replit and Lovable is that I can actually save this. I'm going to save it to something called Global Savings, and it goes to my GitHub repository. The GitHub repository is a place where I can upload and store all my code, but I can actually bring down that code and start to do some cool things to it in what we see as level 3. So I'm going to select that as a repository destination. This is going to be more of a show ish part of the talk. I'm going to open that. If you've heard of something called Cursor, this is Cursor. It is an integrated development environment. And when we look in the integrated development environment, we have all the code that Lovable created. It is now in here. And what I first want to do is I want to use, to see this agent, this is also an agent here. There's an agent within the IDE, and I want to say, I want you to analyze this repo. All right, and I'm going to talk while it makes its tiny moves. So what is it doing? I have an agent running. The agent is going to go through all of the code. It's going to see what does it do, how is it doing it, and it's going to say, hey, I'm going to give you an analysis of what that code does so that I can do something more. When I say I want to do something more, maybe I do want to start scraping information from other sites. It's telling me the key features right now. It's giving me the model. It's giving me what kind of quality the code is. It says it's pretty good. Lovable did a pretty good job. So I'm going to say I want to improve this application and expand to scraping data from the web. Write a prompt for me to generate an awesome PRD. Because what do I need first? I need a good requirements document or product requirements document to know what my testing criteria needs to be. So right now, I'm not even generating that product requirements document. I'm generating the prompt that's going to create the product requirements document. It doesn't mean that you have to have 20 years of experience in product management and functional requirements in order to do a good product requirements document. I just ask it to write one for me, and for the most part, it does a pretty good job. So I'm just going to say, okay, execute that prompt and save the PRD. So it's going to actually create the product requirements document for me, and you'll see it running. Tells you, let me make it bigger. While it's running, I can show you what an IDE does and why it's good. I can see all of the code here, like the HTML, the data sources. Remember we said, hey, what's the grocery data sources going to look like? So this is the information from the data sources that were imported, dummy data. So we've got Foodland, 629, eggs, Safeway, 679. And so it's going to town right now. And this is when you get up, walk away, you get a cup of coffee, and you let it do its thing. Or, in the world of agentic engineering, you're thinking about another project that you're going to kick off. So I want to caution this. The way I run my agents these days, I probably run 8 to 10 agents at the same time. Usually, if I'm in the code itself, there's some natural breakpoints in my thinking because it's just writing the code. Engineering, it can get tiring. You can go through this feeling of decision fatigue because not only are you working on this, you're switching context into maybe a different one. Maybe I have to create my investor CRM, basically take out all of the large files from my hard drive because I can. These are the things that I think about constantly of how am I going to improve that next part of my business. I'm kicking off more agents. The agents are doing more things. And I am mentally tired by the end of the day. I want to share with you that there is being ultimately productive and having these agents do things for you, but there's also the side when I was talking to Darshan and his group last week, there's this tiring part that emotionally you're going to have to get over in terms of decision fatigue and being able to do all of these things simultaneously. Is there anyone right now? Go ahead.
Are there any skills you've installed on this? Because a really good PRD from a pretty basic place.
It's using base Opus 4.5.
Okay.
4.5, I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because 4.5 shocked the world when it launched in late November, early December. 4.5 is so great at coding. It has trained the coding portions of their models intensely so that it knows to write really decent PRDs, and it's pre-built with a lot of coding languages, skills, lint error messages. Lints are like, if you're in software engineering, did you have a particular error message? So it actually is a game changer in the space when you're going through coding agent development. Before 4.5 came out, I'll do small things. I'll let it do small tasks because I didn't trust it to do larger tasks. Now that 4.5 is around, it's smarter than I am in a lot of the software stuff. I heavily rely on it to do many things. So it's done with its PRD, and it's created as PRD. Oh, the PRD. So you see what it looks like here. And now what I would do is I would execute this PRD. I probably wouldn't do it in Cursor. Cursor isn't the best place to do it. We're still at level 3. But now I know what I can build. I'd probably take a piece of this and start to run these agents. Now, you saw that agent go off there. I can actually run multiple agents at a time. So while that was running, I could have run another agent that did something else.
Would you read the PRD or would you just get that portion?
Just now?
Would
I would go through that PRD line by line. That is where we spend our effort. We're not doing the engineering anymore. We are spending all of our effort making sure that up front, we are very crystal clear on everything that is supposed to happen in that PRD. I would take that and put it straight into GPT 5.2 and ask 5.2, did we forget anything? And so this kind of cross-pollination of things, and you hop from LLM to LLM, you can get the best of all worlds. And so I would not just take this. When I did the prototype, I did it. But if I'm actually spending tokens, all of these things, when I ask it to do something, you spend a token. If I'm spending tokens on creating engineering tools, and it's going to go through a huge process of engineering, I'm going to make sure that requirements document is absolutely correct. This brings up the fact that for the 30 years that I've been in tech, probably 15 of those years, we were trying to move away from waterfall and went to Agile. As of 3 months ago, Agile is dead. It's absolutely dead. Agile's too slow at the pace of where AI is going. Agile was created in the software development lifecycle. The Agile methodology was used to have engineers, QA, and testers and requirements people to come together and be able to write requirements and iterate on ideas, because it was thought that if you created the requirements up front and you did something wrong, the engineers would continue to create and develop it, and when it was not correct or it wasn't as they wanted, it was a huge 3-month, 4-month cycle to get things out the door. I can do that in a day now. So it's a lot of waterfalls where you're defining the requirements up front and then you're executing on the engineering.
Would you build test cases with the Cursor or other tools, or would you want to still maybe do some of those?
Okay, you brought me something really well. That was such a good question. So anyway, let me do this two sides. Then we go from micromanage. We'll just hold on your question, Mark, because
You brought up Agile.
okay, I can't not answer you. Yes, the agents will actually create all the test cases for you. And they'll create all the user acceptance criteria, and they'll create all of it based off of the functional requirements that you've created. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't oversee them. However, they will create however much code coverage that you want on the code. The agents that are specialists on testing will tell you what kind of test harness you need, what type of testing methodology you need. Are you doing unit testing? Are you doing integration testing? And they're going to come up with the plan in the PRD is for a specialized agent to go do that. Yeah. So that's, yeah.
One question that I've been playing with a little bit is, obviously vibe coding is amazing, but what LLMs really seem to struggle with, is the agents, all of it, is that it really struggle with taste, right? And it allows an engineer to build a bunch of stuff and to throw some mock-up on the screen, but at the end of the day, there's a whole crew of people that have been paid out there as designers to make things look pretty, but at another level, just really understanding how users want to use something. And that's an entire skill set that most engineers don't have and never have had, unless they're maybe some front-end design engineers have some of it. And so you can code all this shit and make these really ugly things that maybe are hard to use or maybe easy to use. But then the next step of trying to introduce taste is really hard. And if you do have someone that does have taste, and be able to get that into the code, seems really hard. I'm like, I haven't figured out a good way to do it. Even with Figma's MCP and stuff, it just sucks.
Yeah.
So you end up getting a lot of kind of ugly, hard to use software that gets shipped real frickin' quick because engineers can ship quick.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of thoughts on that. How do you describe taste? As much as you can describe taste, you can put it into what's called a skill. Does it actually work? It's okay. It's not going to be like Leah. Leah's an amazing UX designer and architect. But what it can do, and I'll share with you, do you like the slides, by the way?
Mickey, where did you make the slides?
The slides? And I'll share a little bit with you. Going to the taste question, I initially did this, all of the slides were done in Claude Code. I basically transcribed it on my phone, all the things that I wanted it to do, sent it to Claude Web, said, hey, organize those thoughts for me, took that information, had it fact checked, and then I sent that into Claude Code to create the slides. The slides, when they first came out, were crappy.
I could tell it was vibe coded, and I was like, oh, this is a good deck for an engineer to make. Because it wasn't.
But even to get to that point,
Yeah.
I had to tell it, this has to be good marketing back. Make this not even look like a slide deck, make it look like marketing. And this is the result. So there are things that you can do that make it better. But I would not say that it is a solved problem. There are a couple, these are the things. You can actually ask it, if you're doing a website, to follow Google's or the material design principles. You can give it the design guidelines. That's what this did. It had to go through and actually test that there was enough contrast, that the things that were supposed to be large were large, that it had a nice color palette. So that's one thing. The second thing that you can do, and that when I interview engineers to come onto my team, I basically tell them they need to program the Towers of Hanoi with a coding tool, set up the prompt in 5 minutes, and we have our discussion at the end. They need to show me what it is, because I want to make sure that they can know how to use agents. I've seen somebody that I was interviewing basically create an image from Nano Banana, drag that image into Claude Code and say, hey, give me this vibe. Does it work 100%? No. So I think that there are certain things that the engineering part may be faster, but you're still going to need to augment with the softer things that are more on taste. Does that answer? It doesn't answer your question, Joey?
I don't know. I think I'm curious about the workflow. We don't have to dig it up, but I think there's a lack of training material on how designers design, and maybe that's part of the issue. Like how things get spaced, now that's hard for the LLMs to learn it.
There's a bunch of UI, UX only AI softwares that are out there now.
And I've played with some of them, and they're okay.
I think that the more you can describe it, you can put it into a skill and somebody can test for it. If you can give somebody instructions on something, they can follow it. But if it's like, hey, I don't like the color purple, can you incorporate some texture to make it pop a little bit more? Those are really hard to quantify and actually test for. And when you can't test for it, it'll come out to the lowest common denominator.
Say you were to invest in designing like Figma designs and then take screenshots of those and put that into, is that the closest at this stage of going from actual designs to front-end interface?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Let me get to this level 3, and I'll go back to this level 4, because this is going to showcase a lot of things. There are things like Claude Code, or that are called Model Context Protocol servers. And Model Context Protocol is a way that I, as a person, can do just English language and connect to a different type of application. Figma's one of them. You can connect to Figma and say, hey, can you use the Figma slides that are in this particular directory and actually incorporate into the website. And Figma goes into SVG format so that you can bring it into the application. So those things, if you're pairing the Figma SVGs and bringing it into web application design, that's possible, and we do it. And so that helps with the design aspect. I would also say that there are other things that you could do. If you want to design something in Nano Banana and you think it's great, then you can upload that image and it will try to mimic that image. It doesn't do a great job at that, and I think that there might be a good space for a founder to maybe pull that together. Darshan was saying that there are more people trying to crack that code, but right now you can connect with Figma.
So we were thinking about just having the designer in the loop, but
Yeah,
it's done.
yeah, that
With
makes
the
sense.
feedback to it, and we're not spending the hours and time it takes for them to manually design it,
Yeah.
but we have a direction.
Yep, that makes total sense. And so Alexi, did you have a question really quick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Amanda, and I'm thinking instead of groceries, we were taking the climate crisis. And you put something into Elon Musk's Grok and you get scanned. You put it into another and you get totally different. So how do you think about that with the level 0 and 1 in terms of integrity and data trust? There's so much worry now about mis and disinformation.
Yeah. I think there's probably people in the room that are better able to answer that question than I. I will say that the trust of things that are not true in the world and not true in social media, things that have been coded and they're dark deep fakes, people using other people's words or the way they speak or even images of them. I think that's a whole nother industry in itself on being able to separate what is reality versus what is true. I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question,
How do you
but
think about that when you're building? How do you think about what you use and what's trustworthy and what's not?
so that is a great question because Claudebot came out. I think
Moltbot.
really, what's that?
They changed it to Moltbot.
Claudebot became Moltbot, and it's this thing that's supposed to like be an agent that changes the world for you. It's your assistant, it could do a bunch of things. And there's been a lot of hype about it lately. When I started to try to use it, and immediately there were red flags popping off in my head. There's a security issue here, there's a breach here. For me, I will not touch it. There's too much risk for the reward, so I backed away. I think you gotta have some instinct. That's how I approach it, especially when it comes to the security of my systems, my company's systems, or integrity of data or personal information. There's a hard line I have to draw, but otherwise, I am open to experimentation.
Part of the question for Amanda, would it be just in the prompt? If you tell it, maybe not specifically sources to use, but only use credible sources limited by a prompt?
So the way that prompts work is it gives you information that is the next predictable word. Let's see. If it is fed with information that is wrong, it gives you the next predictable word that could be wrong. There are certain large language models that do a better job at finding what's truth and taking what's not true out of their models. Anthropic is really good at that. They actually promote that. There are other models that are not. So there are other models that actually, maybe Grok might be one of them. That is one of the models that I would not use. AI models can be racist. So I deploy voice agents to different parts of the country, and we listen to the AI models and how they respond to particular accents and the things that they do. AI models are traditionally trained with a lot of middle income people from San Francisco, and it is obvious when they talk to somebody from the South that they are not as good at answering them. We have to keep that in mind. Large language models aren't thinking. They're predicting the next token. Every model is trained differently. And these models, especially like the frontier models, are trained, the Chinese models are trained differently. And so we have to understand the essence of the particular company and how they are training those models to be able to say what is true and what's not true.
Miki, can I add to Amanda's question that might help, especially with what you're trying to achieve? Prompts indeed can help you at this stage but that would be a multi-step funnel. And you can use OpenGemini, OpenChatGPT, and OpenCloud in 3 different tabs. And you first ask, what are the top 10 most trusted experts in the field of sustainability? And you say, give me Eastern, Western, Southern, and Northern, and give me from the past century and this century. And then you ask the same question across all of them, and you see where they overlap. Then you say, assume the identity of these people. Give me a methodology of how you're going to answer my question. Take that methodology, make a new chat, and you say, using this methodology, answer my question, and use only trusted sources with links. You currently, on like level 0 and 1, you can get to a non-hallucinated, source-backed up, at least somewhat credible answer to a question that you still would have to read. But another aspect, I think, trust that I personally have been thinking a lot about is giving up your personal information. I have my memory off, like the ChatGPT does not have a memory of me as a person, and I deliberately share my ChatGPT with another person to confuse it. Even working at Google, and Google is an amazing company, historically, I don't think you can trust your data. My biggest paranoia is not everything I put into an LLM will be eventually used to target and sell something to me, but it will not look like an ad. It will look like an expert opinion that I trust, but it will not be true. And so giving up the data, I think there are ways around giving up your data, creating fake personas and doing other ways to get the answer you want for a persona you want without giving up your data. So I think those are the 2 aspects of integrity that you need to keep in mind.
Perplexity, which is not doing so well these days, came out as one of those places where they were seeking the truth, and they did a lot of the methodology that Leah's talking about. Unfortunately, they're not super popular in the models these days. They lost their way, but I hope that there is another model maker or something that actually does that service for us. Okay, so going from level 3 to level 4. Now we have agents doing things for us because we gave up our autonomy, having to do everything. We gave up a little bit of truth in ourselves, and we're going to have to say, okay, agent, go do stuff for me. Now, to make the leap from level 3 to level 4 is a huge leap. It takes systems thinking, it takes understanding of security, and it takes an understanding of reliability. So what is level 4? 40% of agentic AI projects will be canceled by 2027. That's what Gartner said. Why are they saying that? They're saying that because it is so hard to make the leap from level 3 to level 4, because what does it take? As a senior developer, somebody that's really great, has a lot of experience, they've built up intuition over time, they are the people who can actually harness level 4 the most. Most people will get stuck at level 3. And that's okay. Level 3 is still 2 times the amount of work that we could do, or more than we could do now. But to make the leap from level 3 to level 4 is huge. It requires systems thinking. It takes architectural taste. It takes the intuition that's built over a period of time. And what we have right now in the world in engineering are really senior developers that say, no AI. We're not going to use AI because we can't trust it. And then you've got the young folks that are saying, I'm vibe coding everything. Somewhere in the middle, either the senior engineers have to learn how to do the AI at this level, or the vibe coders have to be infused with a whole lot of intuition and experience. If that does not meet, they cannot get to level 4. Why is that? What is level 4? Level 4 is where you're the architect and the AI teams are executing. You're not executing, I'm not just saying, hey, do that one thing and get that task done, the price of eggs at Whole Foods and Foodland. I need somebody to do UX design work for me. We need a data architect. We need a product marketing manager. We need a React specialist. I need parallel agents running that are going to the Foodland site, the Whole Foods site, and basically this is my scale of agents, so I'm not taking it forever to do it. And I need a security and infrastructure team. I need QA. I've got a team of people, not just 3 QA testers, but I've got QA testers and a manager of QA, managing QA testing. And I've got somebody that merges all of the information and said, that passed the UAT, That one is done with development. Now it's time to merge your code, and now it's time to deploy. So I now am orchestrating this entire thing at level 4. And this is why you have to have this understanding and background of software to be able to get to this point. But those who do can get 100 times gains, because a single founder now can actually execute a huge amount of code. A single founder, if they're technical and they have an engineering background and have strong intuition, can build skills into these agents, and the skills will build over time. These agents, we know how they work together. They can deploy full applications immediately. How many of the people in the world can do that? I don't know, not many. Most of them live in San Francisco, unfortunately. But there are a few that are actually doing this powerfully. Most of us are at either the bottom level of level 4 or at level 3 peeking into level 4.
Miki, are these different agents on different platforms, or are you executing all these agents on one platform?
Could be different platforms. I could be coordinating agents on my computer or AWS or Google Cloud. I could be coordinating a ton of different things at the same time. In our implementation, I'm coordinating between Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, and AWS. And the AWS, I have the voice agents. I have transcribers. I have people that extract pieces of information. I have machine learning specialists. I have quants on my team that are bringing everything together so that agents together.
And the agents are talking to one another cross-platform?
Correct, as well as with the testing agents. And the trick is you have to break down, and the PRD does this, when the PRD that we generated, you have to break things down in such small atomic tasks that it can be traded off between those agents easily. So if you can define an atomic task, you can build it, you can test it, you can release it, you can merge it, and then you can say, check, that's done on the PRD, and then you can move on to the next task. But it eliminates stepping over each other in the development process. But it happens more difficultly with agents. This is a big aha moment. This is opened up in the last 2 months. The models weren't there to really do most of this, but this has happened in the last 2 months. And those who can wield this power have a ton of power at their fingertips to be able to create very good products. And if you want to put other people in the loop to join in this process, a human in the loop, you ask what my process is. I still have human in the loop. I still look at things, and I go through a calibration cycle where these people will kick out and say, Miki, what do you think of these things? And I will manually review them and say, yes, those are right, feed it back into the model, and it goes back into the system. So if you are somebody who was an executive at a company, or you understand how people work, this is how we have to start to understand how agents work, because they are like people. You need to skill them up. You need to know what they're good at. You need to understand the relationship with them. You need to have a place where they can bring their knowledge together and showcase it and use it. All of those things are things that we have to do. You're just applying it now to an agent framework.
So we have things going on with orchestration. Obviously, you got the 5 parallel agents, so that's parallelism, that's multi-threading. The other stuff is when you're picking off the user story, you're picking the little JSON thing. Are you giving it to one at a time to do it, or how is that part? One at a time active for that particular story, or is that being spread across to multiple?
What am I doing? I'm walking away, because I have defined the orchestrator does most of it. And then the orchestrator tells me it's time for you to provide input now. Miki, we need your input on this. Or Ed, we need you to calibrate some data. Or we found something that's not good, and we need to go check that out.
How do you get that data?
In Lovable, I've created an AI operations team of agents. So it detects and surfaces everything that's an anomaly. And so we have a place that we go to, a website that we go to for that.
I have more of a philosophical question, because you hit, when we were talking about what the 3 different concerns about this space. My most senior agent engineer could embrace all of this path towards agentic forms and whatnot, and he could do it well because he'd done it wrong. he had the 10, 15 years of learning curve behind
Yeah.
it, where he'd seen all of the bad ways to architect software, to write code, etc. And he knew what to ask the tooling to do, or not do, that the outcome is supposed to correct it. But is there hope for the junior people you mentioned before, who have not seen it done well in any way, shape, or form? All they would have seen is this stuff, which, as you mentioned, comes in so many different versions, flavors of quality. And then how do you trust that somehow they'll have the intuition, or how does that play out in your head?
This is my point of view. I feel for young engineers right now because, yes, we learn a lot when we make mistakes, right? We learn a ton when we spend 4 hours to debug something that required a semicolon and we couldn't find it. Like making mistakes is part of the game, and you learn and you move on. The other hand is I have learned so much by watching it code. Like, it's almost like watching fish. It's pretty relaxing because you're not actually doing the coding. You're seeing all of the methodology and the thought process, and you do have to watch it before you completely trust it. Just watch what it's doing. That makes me hopeful for young engineers because the pace at which you learn now on multiple languages, across infrastructures, or across platforms is huge. So I think that they can get those intuitions faster than we could. But there is something to say about finding that semicolon. Architectural decisions, the one good thing about young engineers is you can really screw up an architecture in this environment, but you're going to screw that up fast because it's going to take 2 days for you to screw that up. And then you can start over again. So the pace of learning has gotten really fast. The iteration, if you are a good learner, helps you learn what is more destructive than what's useful. But I do feel like some younger engineers may not get the opportunity because of needing less people in the world. Yeah.
I think you're being humble. I think you are number 4. Because I've seen you in action. In fact, I was lucky enough that I had this kind of class, but one-on-one in this exact room, and she was on the whiteboard, and she was mapping out everything that she's done for Olelo. And that's my vote of confidence when I decided to invest in Miki, because I knew it was the real deal. She was showing me under the hood, and there was 250 different agents running in the background inside of AWS. So it speaks for your extensive background and how robust the platform that you built for your own company. I've seen this maybe a month ago or 3 weeks ago. She has built this for her own investing that she's about to do. She's already raised $1 million through White Angels and Friends. And so I probably should have started the talk with that. But she obviously was the rising star of the cohort, but she has done this at a small scale. So when she goes to San Francisco, she showed me this in the back end, an orchestrator that goes out into the web, that gets data, the funds that she wants to invest, that grades them, all collects them together into an application that allows her to grade the investors that she wants to work with so that she can facilitate the fundraising moving forward, which is a great vote of confidence being an investor still. So yes, you're the real deal. You're definitely a number 4, and we need more of number 4s out here in Hawaii, so we're grateful to have you.
One of the points later is that all of the tools that we're using, I'm not using it just to code. You can use it to create pitch decks at a high level, at least the content. You can use it to create your own investor CRMs. I just used it because I was running out of space on my little Mac Mini, and I said organize all of my downloads documents because it was taking up way too much space. Get all the redundant files out and all those things. I helped my daughter create a study guide for her MCATs, and with a lot of information that's on the web, and that is deploying a bunch of agents. So there are a lot of things that you can do, and I actually will get to the founders slides, and I'll just go through one thing here with Boris. So Boris is the guy who basically leads Claude Code, the Claude Code team. They eat their own dog food. They are very good, and you know this because they're coming out with new tools within Claude Code every week. Last week I talked to technical folks and engineers and talked about how I'm blowing up my architecture over 6 months with the methodology being used here. One of the techniques is called the Ralph Wiggum technique, born from The Simpsons. This guy, Ralph, always says that he's doing something and he's being helpful, but he's not. And the cool thing about the Ralph Wiggum technique is what we learned with large language models in coding. Large language models will say they're done when you're prompting them. They're saying, oh yeah, this is all the information. And if it's a lot of information, it's either not correct or it is not complete. So one thing that you have to understand about large language models is that they're incentivized and rewarded to make you happy and be useful. When they have to be useful and happy, they're going to give you as little as possible to make sure that they're accurate. So what Ralph Wiggum said was go in loops, and when you're doing these loops, just say, did you get complete? Was it done? And do it until it's done and iterate over it. I said at the speech last week, that's a workaround in the Claude Code and the Agentic engineering community. Literally the day after, the Claude Code team came out with tasks that do that. It just does the whole Ralph Wiggum methodology. So the point there is that team is a small team of folks that are cranking out code because every single one of them knows how to operate effectively at level 4. And this is why, unless Google, OpenAI, some of the other AI model makers get onto this program, they're going, like the Anthropic team is going to leave them in the dust, at least in this area. So it's about velocity and it's about quality when things come out. So stop supervising, start architecting. So, question, where are you today? Who thinks they're at level 0.5? Got a couple 0.5s. You're not at 0.5. Who thinks that they're at level 1? Good. Who thinks they're level 2? Great. 3? Awesome. 4? Love it. So another expert to go to when we talk through this. I don't think that there are any other levels today. That's the top level, right? If you're operating that level, you're awesome. What is the goal? The goal of this talk was to understand where you are, move up a level. Figure out if you can move up a level. And that is for founders, investors, and mentors in the room. This is my thought process for, founders in the room. If you're not at level 3, get to level 3 as fast as you can. Because if you're not at level 3, you're going to be wasting money. You're going to be wasting dev cycles. You're going to be spending money on engineers that you don't need to spend. And it's not just on the code. It's on everything that we're doing. We're talking about pitch decks, the content for pitch decks, the marketing, research, hiring, ops, everything you can use these tools to help. I'm not going to say it's going to do the whole thing, but you can use it to help. And right now, what we need to do is start to build these muscles to be able to actually execute this fast and iterate on it continuously. So that's my thought for founders. Whether it's code or whether it's not code, we want to make sure that when we're looking at things, it's making sure that we have a great quality bar in all that we're doing so that we're not getting AI slop out there or have these bad words. Everything has to be quality. So I would not say, hey, like basically delegate everything to the AI. You still need to be over it and you need to be precise when you ask AI to do something so they can do great things for you. All right. So investors in the room, what are the 3 questions you should ask me? What is your first pass yield? How many tasks are you outsourcing or are you delegating to AI versus how many tasks that are you doing internally? Because if I'm spending all of my time doing work and doing things that are like low value work, I'm not spending time on my business and doing the high value work. So that's one question I would ask. And now that you know the levels of where they are, you can assess where each founder is on their journey. Walk me through how you built that. Are they at level 1 or are they at level 3? I spec'd it and the agent built it. If they're at level 4,
you're good to go. The last one, some of my investors here have asked me for this, or I happily showed it to them, but show me the orchestration and how your agents are working together. Because if you can't show me it, you're probably at level 2. You're probably at level 2. And that's fine. Level 2 is just fine, but price accordingly. I'm not an investor. There's some revenue, different some revenue, different, same revenue, different multiple. 0 to 1 startup has high cost of burn, time to MVP is high, the team for the same output is 10 engineers versus 3, and you've got accumulating technical debt. Whereas if you've got on L3 to L4 startup, you've got a lot less burn per feature, you have a shorter time for MVP, you get way more done with less engineers, and your technical debt is basically burned down by agents, if you have the structure correct.
On your technical debt, you have agents then who go back and look at your re-architecting your code to go back and redo this stuff, and so that's the shit that never gets done anymore.
That and documentation are two things that my engineers do not like to do, and it's helping us do that. Not only are we solving for the technical debt that we know about, but we're actively looking for technical debt that we don't know about and fixing it. If you're working in that way, you're on a search and rescue mission for your code. But I will say this, and this is why I had the talk last week. Technical debt is actually okay, because as the pace of models and tools are shifting and we get more velocity in getting things out, I can now blow up my entire architecture and shift to a different model or architecture if something comes onto the marketplace that is better. We also always have to have that in the back of our mind. Where we are right now is okay, but it's less. But if you were to start the company all over again today, would you build it differently? If that answer is yes, you should blow up your architecture and use best practices, because it doesn't take long. It used to take 2 years to architect a system, and now it can take, with concerted effort, probably 2 weeks for a team to do it. So it's different. You're not investing in revenue, you're investing in leverage.
You hinted at it earlier when you were talking about interviewing somebody. So you have intuition and years of experience and you can leverage that, but you're hiring now, right? So you are bringing people. How do you interview them? Did I hear you correctly? You're having them code in front of you in the interview?
I am having them doing an Agentic engineering swarm project, yes.
While you're...
Yes. So don't tell anybody that I'm doing this, but this is what I'm doing. I have been prepped by our HR recruiter that they are going to have to bring their laptop, and then I say, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I want you to program a game for me. That game is the Towers of Hanoi. Some people don't know what the Towers of Hanoi are. It's the little donut game when you were a kid that you have smaller donuts at the top and you have to move them from one thing to the other. In software, in traditional computer science and software engineering, it was a recursion game. It's like you had to use this concept of recursion. But anyway, I wanted them to create a game and I wanted them to play the game. And there were a couple things that I'm looking for. One, how would they start if they didn't know what the Towers of Hanoi were? 2, how would they actually set up the agents to work for them? Do they have the agent working autonomously? So after the 5 minutes that I get them to set it up, I then proceed to have an interview. I ask them questions about themselves, about their background, and what they've done. This time, the agent is going to work while we're talking. If they are saying yes, which agents will constantly ask you questions, I know that they're immediately level 3, because they did not set up the agent orchestrator to actually take on the majority of the work for them while we were having the conversation. I know that if they have subpar UX tools, that they don't know about skills. Claude Code has skills. You can load things up to use React components versus different components. And I know that they didn't do that correctly. So when at the end of the session or whenever the agents are done, we play the game, they show me the game. And I really love when people have this little pizzazz at the end where they had some unique element with the game. It's a simple game and it's boring and all, but I love it when people have at least one delighter.
in that game they can tell me about and why they did that. And so I like to review the entire process of their thinking and their ability to use those coding agents. And then I get to know them. It's a half-hour conversation, and I get to vet them pretty quickly.
What percentage of the people that you're interviewing that can't get to this level 2 or 3?
I would say high percentage, because the recruiting company is sending to me, they are informing them that you have to be able to use these tools effectively. And only if they are effective will they pass. One person finished, but it was sloppy and I didn't like it. The other two, I was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And I'm learning through the interview, because the people that are using it from day one are doing some really amazing things. And that's where I'm super glad that this community is here, because that's how we learn. We learn from each other, that we're trying new things and trying cool things. I'm watching them, I see them do a couple things. I see them do things that I wouldn't do, but you can tell.
How many of them are in Hawaii?
One is a Punahou graduate from Hawaii that used to be on the surfing team, but just one so far. But 1 out of 3 ain't bad. That's pretty good.
Sorry.
Why do you need people if you have these teams that are dedicated to a certain scope and they have an architecture that they're managing?
Yeah, so I have 3 engineers on my team plus me. Actual engineers, not agent engineers, people. I'm doing a lot of the coding, and I would say my engineers are at level 3. And they need to work up to level 4. That's why I said there's a huge gap. I need some level 4s on my team, because I need to CEO, right? Yeah, I need to go CEO. We're a very small team with a lot of output, very aggressive roadmap. There's still a lot of work to do. The engineering is doing it for you, but reviewing those PRDs, making sure it's deployed correctly, making sure operations are going well, doing all of those little things, they add up. So we still need more people, but we're very lean.
I'm curious, do you have an example prompt of what you put in to set up level 4?
Yes, I do. Actually, because I have last night I've coded the Paranoia saver that scrapes all of the information, and I have the agent that actually did this. And by the way, Whole Foods is one of the cheapest places to be besides Don Quixote. Everywhere, unless you're doing Costco, 365, great place to shop. But if you say that on the mainland or the continent, they'd be like, Whole Foods, whole paycheck. Whole Foods is the cheapest here. Foodland is the most expensive. So when you're picking up your poke from Foodland, know that you might want to go somewhere else. So in this area where I've got my smart box, I got my spam, my poi, and I can basically see that thing. So this was generated. I can actually add to whatever I want to scrape. So I can add a new item, and I can scrape all items. I'm not going to do that now, because the MCP servers, to scrape it actually takes time. But let's show you the prompt that actually does that.
So you set up the level 4 prompt in Cursor, not in Claude Code in the background.
I set up the level 4 prompt in, I showed you guys the one in Cursor, the PRD, in Claude Code. Because what Claude Code can do is help you write the plan for the prompt by walking you through things and asking you questions. What is a good PRD? That is not it. 1 second.
She's looking for that. The one that she showed me a few weeks ago was actually an organizer at the head that would delegate to multiple agents to go down into the world. The context here is for investment, so she is building her own CRM for investors that she will be reaching out to in the coming month or next round of fundraising. She's being proactive and utilizing these agents to go in the world, scrape the internet, and find other funds, investors, and so on that actually matches Olelo's mission, her values, that they invest in Hawaii, or they have certain things that are, and it's beyond just the principle of what they're investing, but it spreads out.
Oh, there it is, found it.
So I go work and search your hard drive.
Well, I basically just did the agents to basically, let's find out where this is. So went through and it said, hey, scraping is not like a trivial task, because scraping is actually really intrusive to the people who actually own the sites, and they block it. What I had to do is, just for this exercise, I don't typically do this, I said go around it. And so I gave it some instructions on how to get around the web scraping things. And so what I wanted to do is describe the anti-patterns, what the scraping does, and all that stuff. Now, how much of this PRD was written by the agent? I'd say 90% of it, but I just put my intuition in here on what needed to happen. So if I go through this PRD, you can see what you needed to scrape, the data model, the architecture, the file architecture, but the really cool part is all of the tasks that it breaks down into. So when we talk about the agents have to go through. The agents will do one of these things at a time and do them really well. Each agent will do one of these things and then iterate until it's done, until it meets its acceptance criteria. And the way that we stay coordinated is that the orchestrator goes through all of these acceptance criteria and says, is it done? Can we merge? And then when it's time to merge, it merges. So the way that this happens is you have to have something called GitHub, a repository and this concept of Git trees where each agent is committing code and saying something's reviewed, and that particular part of the tree is committed and ready to merge. And so this means I'm not going to step over each other, and lots of agents can contribute at the same time without being in the same code base. And that's a hard thing for humans, and when you go fast, it's even harder. So we break things up into Git trees and have a merging agent that brings everything together to accomplish that. So that's that question. Let's see.
Where's the scraping part of the PRD? That was the most interesting part.
I can't see.
I'm actually working on a scraping project right now.
How about I send this to you?
Absolutely.
Who does the scraping?
I do. Thousands of IDs has been my historical
And you
record.
know that we're intrusive when we do it sometimes, right? All right, and then so a lot of you are like, you by day investor, by night you're a mentor, or vice versa. A lot of folks in the room are mentors, and these are the things that I would ask of you. Figure out, like when you're talking to a founder, what level are they? When you're diagnosing that level, your whole goal is to challenge their comfort zone to just get one level higher. Just one level higher, because the return on gains is so high that you want them to just get one level higher. That means just try a little bit more in a space so you get one level higher.